Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this cabinet meeting on the 8th of July 2024. First of all, just to welcome you all here. Thank you, members of the estates team. Welcome, Mr. Kershaw, and welcome Millie joining us today from Reefham. And we're ready to start, if that's okay. So first of all, the apologies for absence. We have apologies from Andrew Brown, who is unable to join us today. I'm not aware of any further apologies from anyone else. So if we move on to the minutes of the meeting and minutes of the last meeting, were there any questions on those minutes, please? No, okay, I'll be happy to propose that they are accepted. Seconded by Councillor Toy. I presume everyone in favour. Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm not aware of any public questions. Were there any declarations of interest on items on the agenda? No, okay, thank you. Unaware of any urgent items for business. Were there any member questions at this point in time? No. Okay, so we have no recommendations from the Open Scrutiny Committee. So if we move on then to item 8, recommendations from the Governance, Risk and Audit Committee. And I understand Councillor Toy was still chairman of the committee at the time when they dealt with the anti-money laundering and counter-fraud policies. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, these are standard reviews of policies that have come round. The details are in the report. I don't think there's anything special that we need to mention there. They've been reviewed and found satisfactory and there for your consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any questions on these two recommendations? No, okay. Well, I'm happy to second John's proposal that they are accepted. And can I just have a vote of all those in favour, please? Thank you. Brilliant, thank you. So we move on then to item 9, which is the corporate plan progress report. Appreciable progress since the last report, and referring directly to the action plan within. You'll see, first of all, item 2 on the table, the waste and resources strategy. You'll note this is now amber, and that's simply because of the national uncertainty that exists around this subject. And obviously, you know, we've just concluded the elections and hopefully the emerging government position will be clear in due course. Item 3 is the local plan examination, and that's gone from amber to green following the examination that's taken place, which we await feedback for, but the examination is of course complete. Item 4, just to note the coastwise events that are happening in due course, I believe starting tomorrow, in fact. So you know, that's very welcome. Item 5 is the Cromer and Munsey scheme, very much underway now, of course. Sorry, excuse me. Item 6, the parish poll on the Wells neighbourhood plan, of course, occurred on Thursday. As well, it was something to wait up that little bit longer for, perhaps. And you know, such a big job, obviously, progressing neighbourhood plans from start to finish. So well done to all both in and outside of the authority on that. Item 7 is the rural strategy. Previously, this was previously delayed, as you may recall, to divert resources to the Fakenham Leisure Centre following the successful securing the promise of funding. Discussions are now in place, and therefore this is reflected in the progress report. Item 9 refers to the construction of newly refurbished public toilet facilities, and yes, we have seen some delays due to the capacity of UK power networks to carry out the necessary works to progress these. And this is certainly not something that simply affects our authority, but many others, particularly streetlight authorities, etc. So, yeah, a bit concerned about that, but something that certainly will not impede us entirely. Item 10, I believe, refers to the active environment strategy. It shouldn't read, this is probably just one change, it shouldn't read that it's not started. Discussions have started on the general approach here, but it has to be prioritized accordingly, given the competing pressures for that team involved elsewhere. So that's possibly a little bit of a drafting error from the last time, because we did talk about that having started in the last report. Just seeing what else I wanted to highlight here. Item 12 refers to the successful proactive work being undertaken, securing increased benefit award to residents, and that really is showing its worth in spades, isn't it? Yeah, well done to officers who are engaged with that. We've now seen the completion of 38 affordable homes in the year, despite overwhelming challenges with the nutrient neutrality picture and other constraints. Item 14 again completed, so thank you for officers involved there. Item 15 is obviously still red, and that reflects that the last discussion and the delays in introducing the legislation and premium. And as you're aware, discussions continue, as recently published, in fact, in the NewsQuest publication, I believe in the last week. Item 16, we've obviously got the increased portfolio of temporary accommodation, but also now a reduced length of stays now occurring too, which is very welcome. So very good for those families as well. The customer services delivery model is obviously changed as well. So that's reflecting the recent progress where it previously not started. There has obviously been the work there that's detailed. Item 23, another change is the planning service improvement plan, and that's now green. And I think we all appreciate the huge progress that's been made there. And the same with item 25, that's the annual accounts. That was previously, I believe, amber, it's now green, a green rag status. And yeah, thank you, Tina and the team for the work that's been achieved there. Item 26, yeah, that's now started with significant progress made, and that's reflected in an updated rag status, green rag status. And item 28, this is the Cedars, and that's reflective of an earlier position, I suppose you could say, when for the window in which this report refers to. But of course, it's not now the current position. We're in a much better position in terms of the letting of those spaces, and that will be reflected in the next report. So again, appreciable progress towards meeting objectives, and thank you to everyone who has worked towards achieving that. Were there any questions? John, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just item 17, the Stalham High Street task horse action plan. That was allowed to get out on a Monday morning. No, just pleased to see that's going well. And we did have a good visit down there, and good engagement with the local members. I'm concerned that we've had to cancel twice now the placemaking workshops, but due to not enough members. So I hope that I can get further engagement with local members to ensure that stays on track. Just need to keep an eye on that one, which obviously I'm doing. So, but yeah, hopefully we can continue to move that forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it would be, an opportunity missed if we don't secure some really good grassroots activity in Stalham on the back of this. There's certainly enthusiasm, and I suppose you could say concern about the current picture, but I think there's a lot more potential for particularly events and that sort of thing in the Stalham town locality, and potentially untapped potential with the co-location of the Broads, etc. So hopefully there's some good work to be achieved there in future and alongside that.
I absolutely acknowledge the work that the local members are doing.
Yeah.
They're working extremely hard, and I'm pleased to see that there. But it's whether we can now get the community on board as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Christopher, did I miss your hand?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I went to item number 11, which is around submitting quality bids. Now, I realise we don't actually have a specific objective on the Fakenham swimming pool, but members will be aware that because of the general election, the Department of Health, Levelling Up and Housing have not yet signed the memorandum of understanding to actually give the grant money to North Norfolk District Council. So I wonder whether that ought to be reflected in here somewhere, and I wonder whether that in itself would change that RAG rating. Whether you or indeed Officer Hems have got any thoughts on that?
Well, obviously this refers to a sort of picture in time. If it needs to update in future, of course, it certainly will do for the next report. Hopefully, hopefully it's secure for the future. That funding, obviously, not within our gift. And as you've highlighted the item, something we should also flag is the success in securing the swimming pools funding. Not besides Fakenham, the support grant, which I think is a really good achievement for staff members. So thank you for that. It was potentially quite unexpected, really. So it's obviously an ongoing target. Generally, this item, secure funding, it won't have a sort of end date such as you would expect. But obviously, the general election could throw up all sorts of different outcomes, and we'll do our best to influence where we can for the future of North Norfolk. I don't know if there's anything anyone else wanted to add to that, but I think that's sort of the current position, really.
Well, this report, as the leader has said, is to the period the 31st of March. So that was the full year 23-24 in terms of the actions that were identified in last year's annual action plan. The report for the first quarter of 2024-25 is substantially complete, but because of the general election, won't be on the ONS agenda for July. Unfortunately, it will be presented to the September meeting. Following the election last week, it is my intention to write to Jerome Mayhew MP, the returned MP for the Broadland and Fakenham constituency, to see how we can work with him to impress upon Department of Levelling Up and Homes and Communities the need for us for that memorandum of understanding to be signed, so that we aren't at any ongoing risk in terms of taking forward the Fakenham Leisure and Sports Hub proposal. Because as Councillor Cushing has said, at the present time, we do not have the full funding confirmed, and we are now moving to a position of risk, which Mr. Hems is reporting to the steering group and local members. So I don't know whether Steve is able to update you further on the procurement process that we have commenced, But we are now moving into a position of financial risk to the authority if we don't get that memorandum of understanding with the government completed and signed off.
Thank you. Morning, members. The situation at the current time is that we have continued with the procurement process up to what is referred to as REBA stage 3. So that is to the planning permission grant phase. So we're not at the end of that timeline at the current time. The issue that this presents us is that effectively we have a number of organisations out there who are currently working at some risk on the basis that we proceed with elements that move us beyond into the construction phase. We're not able to give formal contracts for that work, even though we have made the awards in effect under framework agreements. Does mean that we are, we are basically not proceeding at the pace that we wish to. Does put that date of March 26, that was the original completion requirement, into doubt. I think it is likely, although there is no certainty, that if funding does continue for these projects and is agreed, that basically they will the relevant government department will revisit those dates because they are becoming rapidly unachievable. We're not the only authority in that situation. You will recall that 50 authorities or 50 projects receive funding under the round 3 allocation. We were one of 5 authorities that received allocation slightly later under what they refer to as capital allocations. My understanding is that none of those projects currently are in a position where they have proceeded any further than we have. So clearly it's not a unique situation for North Norfolk, but we continue with the work that moves us as far forward as possible with as minimal risk to this authority financially as possible.
Yeah, and obviously that continuation is reflected in today's agenda with item 15. Very much sort of necessary nitty gritty really to progress the work that's being done. Thank you to members and members of outside bodies that are serving on the working party group, which is contributing towards progress. I will likely attend the local government finance summit next week, seek to press on a few of these points. I think it would be a good idea to do so when that occurs. And others, besides levelling up, there are of course other things that we will seek to be pressing the government on in terms of second homes and all sorts of other subject areas. That said, this is obviously a very significant importance and immediacy, really. As has been said, we are working at some risk, but we'll see where we go. Okay, are we happy to note the report? Yeah, okay, thank you so much. So the next item is the outturn report. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you. And I apologise to Cabinet members, I've got a number of papers on today, so you'll be hearing from me often. So the first thing that I want to do is to thank the finance team for all the work that they've done. You are aware that they've been largely under pressure over the last couple of years due to staffing, but I want to extend my thanks to their work over the last 12 months, particularly on this budget. The last time I reported on this last year's budget was in March. So you will, and I'm going to say pleased in the loosest of terms, because obviously we're not pleased with the increase in costs over the last 12 months. But I'm pleased to report that the budget monitoring 10 period is not too dissimilar to the outturn report that I'm presenting today. Unfortunately, my colleague Councillor Fredericks is all too aware of the impacts that temporary accommodation and homelessness has had on this budget, which is why we made sure in the next financial year, the current financial year's budget, that we provided more than we had previously to meet these costs. Aside from that, I think it's quite self-explanatory. I know some members have struggled with the report format, and Officer Stankley and myself will be working on that going forward. There is a lot of information here, so I appreciate it may not be clear to everybody, but I'm happy to hand over to Officer Stankley if there's anything that she would like to add before we go to questions.
Good morning, everybody. I haven't really got anything to add, other than as we forecast at period 10, we are seeing a deficit in the year-end accounts, and it was largely due to the reasons that we outlined in the period 10 monitoring report in terms of a shortfall in planning income, which is due to the impact of coming to the end of the local plan nutrient neutrality, which was outlined in period 10 report. The issue that we have with temporary accommodation, which I think members are all aware of. And then we also had borrowing costs incurred that we knew we were going to have to fund at some point in the future. They've just come a bit earlier than we thought with the use of cash. We're getting to a point where we will have to take some long-term borrowing soon. But as I say, that all the reasons are pretty much as we outlined in period 10 report anyway, so no great surprises. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the outturn report? No. John, go ahead.
Just to say, it's always good to see, having been on GRAP before, that we can actually see the monitoring working. I think it's good evidence that works, but I think also, as I've discussed before in other formats, that the way the report is presented could be easier for people to understand more generally. But no, thank you. I'm pleased, and thank you to Councillor Shires for staying on top of this and keeping us on track in these difficult times, along with obviously officers. It's good, but the monitoring shows that we're holding in there, and it is really challenging. But thank you.
Yeah, it certainly is challenging, and reflective of the previous discussion we were having. Okay, so we've got recommendations to consider the report and recommend items A through to H to full council. You happy to propose that, Councillor Shires, and I will second that. And presumably all in favour. Yeah, thank you. Item 11 is the Treasury outturn report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A huge thank you to Officer Moore for the work that he does on this. So as outlined, this is the last financial year, and as we know from period 10 from Officer Stankley in this previous report, for the outturn, we did undertake some borrowing in year, but that is all outlined in when we set our treasury management strategy. So unless Officer Stankley's got anything else to add to that, I'm happy to take questions.
That's fair enough. Okay. Any questions from members? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Dixon. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just draw your attention to page 92 and 93? On 92, you have a table, and that table on the capital expenditure line, and in the forecast for 23-24, you've got 40.830. On page 93, at the bottom of the page, in a similar table, again, capital expenditure forecast for 23-24, you've got 40.840. Which of those is correct? Sorry?
With the microphone. So that was page 93, table 2,
Yes.
and the first table was,
The first table on 92 is the capital expenditure line at the top of that table. In year 23-24 forecast, it's got 40.830. And on page 93, a similar table at the bottom of that page, again for the 23-24 forecast, you've got 40.840. So there's a discrepancy there, and I'm wondering which of those two are correct.
I'll just have to refer to the budget report, so I'm just having a look at that for you now.
Thank you.
yeah, well spotted. Straight 10,000 there somewhere. Would it be helpful if we dealt with an item now and came back to this question? Because I think it's important we clarified just to make sure we get the right figure through. But it might just take Tina a few minutes to lay our fingers on that information. Would it make sense just to do an additional item and then come back, or as much as we need? Is that okay? Okay, thank you. So if we go to the debt recovery, again, Councillor Shires.
Thank you very much. So again, I would like to thank Officer Knight for his work on this. So this report includes a summary of the debts written off and the reason for write-off, the collection performance of the council, the level of arrears and the level of provision for bad and doubtful debts. So in summary, the last financial year, we had council tax write-offs that were less than the previous year. We had non-domestic business rate write-offs that were less than the previous year. The sundry income write-offs were slightly higher than the previous year, but that's outlined in the report. And obviously the housing benefit write-offs are now reported separately, and that will sit with Councillor Fredericks. The main reasons for the write-offs in the last financial year in terms of council tax were bankruptcy, liquidation, sadly where a debtor is deceased, or where a debtor is absconded, and the business rates, primarily where a debtor's gone into bankruptcy or liquidation or the debts were recoverable. I would just like to point out at this point that the council tax target for collection of 98.2 was overachieved, where we reached 98.37, and the business rates, the target was 99.2 and we've reached 99.29. So the collection rates were higher than the previous year. Again, I would like to thank the revenues team for the work that they do. They're largely an undersung department who sit quietly and just get on with business. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, I don't think it can be overstated really, and we find ourselves saying it every year that this is impressive. So, yeah, big congratulations, thank you really to the officers responsible for the work there, because it continues to more than meet expectations. Any questions from members? Okay, I believe that was to recommend to full council that it's items 1 and 2, approving the annual report and the change to delegated authority. Are we happy to propose that? And I'm happy to second. And all of those in favour, please. Yeah, thank you. Should I do a further item? Tina, are you okay to go back yet?
Yeah, I'll have to come back to you on that. I'll let everybody know what the difference was and why there is a £10,000 difference. I can't find that at the moment. Okay.
So in terms of referring this to full council, would it be acceptable then that we refer this to full council with the exception of this that needs to be reviewed? What's the best way of doing this? Because obviously there is a slight error in the report that just needs to be clarified. So this won't be sent to full council in its current state. There would be an amendment. Does that
Subject to the amendment.
subject to the amendment? Yeah. Okay. So so the recommendation that we review and recommends the outcome position to full council for approval, subject to that. It's probably a typo, to be honest with you, but we just need to make sure that that is corrected on page 92, 93. Okay. And I'll second that. All those in favour, please. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tina, for trying to resolve that for us. Okay. The next item is the housing benefit debt recovery, and that's Councillor Fredericks.
Thank you. And again, I'd like to echo our amazing officers for bringing this item to us and working very, very hard with those benefit claimants that are in financial distress. We're obviously seeing a lot of financial distress with housing benefit not reaching rent values in this area. However, we have the financial inclusion team now, so they work closely with our residents with budgeting, etc., and finding different ways of increasing their income. The process will change as we migrate to universal credit from housing benefit. That has been delayed for a number of years, but we are seeing that coming into process. So what that actually means is that anybody who's claiming housing benefit will go on to universal credit. When that happens, it's going to be harder to reclaim that housing benefit if it's been overpaid. So we're trying our hardest to reclaim as much as we can and work with the tenant in a reasonable way to reclaim some of that housing benefit debt. Because people, you know, if you're in that situation, you're going to want to feed your families first. And that's if that's in the front of your minds, then paying your rent is probably secondary. But the important message is that please pay your rent, come to us, and then we can find different ways of helping you with the rest of it. That's my real message, because once you lose that home, it's very hard to get back again. So please come and talk to us. We're ready and willing to listen in the benefits team and with our financial inclusion officers. We also have Citizens Advice Bureau here in the building to help you. So that's my overwhelming message is please pay your rent and then come to us, and then we'll be able to help you with other grants or other ways of helping you. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Fredericks, and obviously this, refers back to what we were saying before about the really fantastic work that's been achieved. You know, that amount of increased benefit award that's grown since the last progress report. Just shows numerically really what's being achieved there. But I think as well, this demonstrates we're doing a job here in terms, you know, if you look where we are compared to other local authorities, we're clearly doing a good job here. Okay, so the recommendation is to approve the annual report giving details of housing benefit overpayment debt recovery in accordance with the council's debt recovery policy, write-off policy, and housing benefit payment recovery policy. Happy to propose that. And seconded by councillor Blathwaite, and just all of those in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, councillor Fredericks. Item 14 is the Rocket House proposed new long-term lease agreement. Back to you, councillor Shiers, for the rest of the meeting.
I know, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So, you know, we've spoken about the Rocket House quite often. So the one thing that I did want to make members aware of, the purpose of this is to obtain a market valuation for renting. That isn't to say that we are fully commercial in every single lease. We know that we will offset commercially for social value, as well as environmental value, as councillor Varley is very vocal about. So this is us working towards ensuring best value for money for this authority, and then working with the tenants or prospective tenants to see where we can negotiate beyond that point. So I'm happy to take questions on that. I have got Officer Woodley with me if we have got anything that you would like to add to this conversation. If not, if I can't answer any questions, I'm sure he will be able to.
So this is obviously a necessary consideration in terms of the future of the building, and you know, it's appreciable economic, social, and in respect of where it is in the cliff face environmental credentials, and you know that being retained. So we certainly have to do this bit of work here in terms of obligations around best value, as Lucy has said. Were there any questions from members on this item? Councillor Toy.
Yeah, just a comment, Mr. Chairman, which you've kind of alluded to anyhow. It's just to say that I'm pleased that we look at the thing holistically. You know, it would be very easy for us, given the financial constraints that we've spoken about already this morning, just to look at the numbers, but we know there's more than just the rent numbers of how it interacts in many other ways. So I'm pleased that we do look at things in a much wider view than just the straightforward numbers. It'd be very easy to go for the best rent you could get to cover our debt, and actually it would manifest its losses potentially in other places. So you know, so I support the process that we're doing, and welcome this. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Sorry, I should have asked, was there anything just to add from an officer perspective? There might not be, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. The only added benefit is obviously the Rocket House Cafe lease is also up next year. So this valuation will actually give us some benefit in that area, as well as the RLNI, to make some decisions as we go forward with both areas, with their leases both due next year. So I think it will certainly add some value in that case.
Yeah, thank you. That's useful. Okay, so the recommendations are detailed, and they number 1 through to 4. Are they proposed by Councillor Shires, seconded by Councillor Toy? And all of those in favour, please? Yeah, thank you. Liz, was that okay? Yeah. So that's unanimous. Item 15 is, as we discussed at the beginning of the meeting, Fakenham Leisure Centre leases. Go ahead.
So this is to ensure that we have negotiated the land to be able to do this development, potential development pending government financing. So this is due diligence and paperwork. This is nothing more complicated than that.
No, I think, as I said at the beginning, towards the beginning of the meeting, necessary nitty gritty. It's really that, isn't it? We've got to sort of just do this, and we're moving forward as we intend to and mean it really. So the recommendations are detailed in a number of bullet points. Were there any questions from members on this item? Go ahead, Christopher.
Not such a question, but I think it's worth stating the point to thank the Fakenham Town Council for their cooperative engagement on this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. We've really been delighted with the support, certainly from the chair of the council, mayor of the council, chair. I can't remember. Mayor. Yeah. Thank you. And the community as a whole, really. So, please do emphasise that at future visits to the council, Christopher, because obviously we couldn't do it without these partnerships, and this demonstrates how important they are, really. Okay, the recommendations proposed by Councillor Shires, seconded by Councillor Withington, and all of those in favour, please? Yeah, unanimous, thank you. Item 16 is North Walsham Football Club lease, and Councillor Shires. Who else?
Thank you. So this is, I don't know if members will remember, in 2021, a paper came to Cabinet to approve a lease for 21 years. It's now necessary to propose a new lease for 25 years in order to secure the much needed funding for the ambitions of the club, primarily the 3D football pitch. But the other thing that I just want to draw Cabinet notice to is the use of the lease. The scope of it has been slightly widened to support the football club in their future financial sustainability. So that's to enable them to offer income generation, which is slightly alternative to what their current lease allows them to. I just remind members that everything's in purple papers if there are any other questions.
Yeah. Just to check, is there anything, Councillor Withington, you wanted to add on this item? No, that's fine. Yeah, please, it's going ahead, absolutely. So was there anything from an office perspective here? No, okay. It's obviously very straightforward. And the recommendation is simple: to agree to 25-year leases outlined in the exempt appendix. Proposed, seconded by Councillor Withington, and all of those in favour? Yeah, that's unanimous, thank you. Sorry, excuse me. Item 17 is the Cromer Promenade property rent review.
Apologies, me again. So this is outlined in purple papers, but I would like to thank officers for the work that they have done, specifically with the lease negotiation in terms of income for this council. But I'm happy to hand over to Officer Creasy if there's anything that you would like to add don't feel that you have to, if there is anything.
Morning, everyone. No, nothing really to add other than obviously by processing the rent review, we're meeting our obligations to obtain best value from the property.
And just to confirm with my local member hats on, yeah, this was discussed prior coming to the meeting, as you'd expect. So thank you for that. Were there any questions? Presumably not. So are we happy to propose the recommendations from Councillor Shires, which are set out in the 2 bullet points, and I'm happy to second them. All of those in favour, please. Yeah, that's unanimous. Item 18 is the Fakenham Industrial Unit lease renewal. Councillor Shires.
Thank you. This is in a similar vein to the previous paper. So I would just like to thank officers involved for their work. The details of the lease are actually in purple papers. So again, it's another piece of evidence as to the work that officers are doing to secure the financial sustainability of this authority.
Yeah, okay. Anything to add from an officer perspective? No. Okay. Any questions at all? No. Okay. And obviously, appreciable that this is a fantastic business to have in the district as well. Recommendations detailed in the 2 bullet points proposed by Councillor Shires, seconded by Councillor Toy. All of those in favour, please. That's unanimous again. Item 19, the last substantive item is the seasonal overflow car park at Gold Park in Munsley. Councillor Shires.
Thank you, Chair. So the most wonderful thing about my portfolio is I learn new things almost, I would say, on a daily basis. It's not quite that. And this is one of the things that officers have been working on throughout the last 12 months to get us into a position of where we can move forward. The work that they've done is largely in conversation with the partner that we're working with. So all I want to do is outline the reason for this is that there hasn't been a set agreement really as to what goes forward, and we want to ensure as a local authority that we're getting not only the best for our taxpayers but also what's fair for our council taxpayers and everybody else involved. So the proposal here is that the use of the car park will be monitored so that we can come to a fair agreement overall. So this is a short-term agreement, so I apologise that this will come back at some point, but we need to make sure that we're being fair overall. So everything else is in purple papers, but I'm happy to take questions as officers are.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to exactly say that it will come back, and certainly for yourself as the portfolio holder for the estate. Was there anything to add from an office perspective? No. Councillor Fredericks, go ahead.
I'd really thank you to Officer Creasy for working on this and the team, because it's really important to set out an amicable agreement. I welcome the 2 years monitoring because obviously we have the coastal works taking up a part of the Beach Road car park. This is in no way to limit or restrict. This is actually to gain understanding of how we're using that car park and the overflow car park. And I'd like to thank Munsley Parish Council for upkeeping the overflow car park. They do a really great job. And yeah, so I welcome the monitoring over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any further questions on this item? The recommendations are detailed again in the 2 bullet points. And in respect of option one, which seemed the most sensible way forward. Proposed by Councillor Shires, seconded by Councillor Fredericks. Was there something you wanted to say? Sorry. No. And all of those in favour, please. Okay, yeah, that's unanimous. So there's no reason for exclusion of press, and there's no private business. So thank you all for your attendance this morning, and look forward to the